In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, peace be upon you all. Welcome to the series on Islam and Atheism. We begin the second session of our series of discussions. Thank you very much, Ghamidi Sahab, for your time. Ghamidi Sahab, I would first like to summarize what you have stated so far in simple terms and then ask you some follow-up clarifying questions before proceeding. And then you can resume your point from where it had stopped. What Ghamidi Sahab has said so far, if we break it into 5 points to understand it, first, the scope of human knowledge is basically limited to only two things, self and matter. Both of these appear either as things or as manifestations of potentials. Second, in all the languages of the world, the basic distinction of nouns and verbs actually represents this reality. And the rules of language is also based on this natural understanding. Third, in order to reach the reality of self and matter, the faculty that has been given to human beings is the intellect, and this intellect is the distinctive honor of human beings, which sets them apart from others. Fourth, the sources of perceiving self and matter are the senses which are the doors of knowledge for the intellect. These senses are of two types, external, which relate us to matter, and internal, which relate us to self. Fifth, and the last point which came up in the previous session of Ghamidi Sahab, was that the facts obtained through the senses are not dependent on any argument. These are called the existential realities. And the starting point of human knowledge is the understanding of these realities. Ghamidi Sahab, you stated these fundamental points in context of our question. What is the intellectual basis of the religion you believe in, and what are its arguments? So the discussion started with the point that, first of all, we must know what the basis of human knowledge itself is. Based on what you have suggested so far, Ghamidi Sahab, I will present a few questions. The first thing that comes up is that if the subject of human knowledge can only be two things, self and matter, then there are some other facts that people discuss. They become a part of his knowledge. He makes decisions based on them. For example, there is a discussion of time and space. There is a discussion about time. So these apparently can neither be included in self nor matter. So how then have we restricted the topics of human knowledge to two things only?
These are, in reality, ontological correlates of self and matter. When you analyze a thing, it is not an abstract thing in isolation.
Right.
It will have features, purposes, dimensions, associations, and certain necessary implications. When we imagine space, what is it? It is the container of thing. Similarly, what is time? It is the container of the manifestation of potential in thing. In this way, they are correlates. When we say that we will study self, we will study it from all these aspects. In that study, the container will also be studied. Similarly, when we study thing, in that study, its physical container will also be studied, and many other things as well. For this reason, in the present time, modern science now sees both time and space as a dimension. Hence, when we study thing or the manifestation of a potential in it, then everything in the category of its correlates will become a part of the study. I have already introduced how many sciences are generated from the study of these two. All those sciences inform us the diverse aspects from which both these can be studied. For this reason, there is no need to state them separately.
Okay, the point adequately clear. Ghamidi Sahab, what you said till now, that whatever things come in front of us separately, when we deliberate, they do not have a separate existence. They are the necessary implications of these two. In other words, they are dependent on these two or connected with the two. So for example, how is time related to self and matter so that we can understand the connection?
Time is the same as Zaman. I have explained that when potential manifests, we determine that matter manifests in two forms, thing and manifestation of its potential. Time is how we measure the manifestation of potential. In this way, it is its container. Waqt is its Urdu translation. For both time and space, I have explained that their status is exactly that of a container. That is, they are correlates of self and matter as containers. There is no need to mention the correlates separately.
The point is clear. Moving forward, in your earlier presentation, Ghamidi Sahab, it was discussed that humans possess senses. They are external as well as internal, through which humans study, understand, and become aware of matter and self. As for the external senses, we all possess them. They are common, that is why they are even determined to be 5 in number, smelling, tasting, etc. But how will we explain the internal senses? Will we call them intuition, personality, awareness, instinct, intellect? What will we call them? Because until we determine something, what is the faculty through which I am accessing self?
Just as the external senses are called senses, if you deliberate, same is the case of internal senses. We commonly say, something affected my aesthetic sense. My sense of morality guides me to this decision. This is a common expression. You can express it in some other way too. However, I believe that in contrast to external senses, this is an appropriate way to express it. That is, our Creator has created such sources in our inner selves which become the doors of knowledge for many things. The way the external senses become the doors of knowledge for the external world, the internal senses become the doors of knowledge for our inner world. So you get to hear some of these expressions very commonly. In fact, you must have also heard, "My sixth sense says so." So what is this? All such things are those in which you are pointing towards the internal senses. So they should be introduced as such.
Ghamidi Sahab, when you discussed that we have internal senses within us and they make decisions within me as well as others, and through them we reach existential realities which become established facts. Help me understand here that this action is taking place internally because in the case of external senses, you and I both can see the table, our knowledge is verifiable through sharing it with each other. In the case of internal senses, and keeping in mind that you mentioned in the beginning that a person can base their knowledge on assumptions and superstitions. That is, they have their personal world of imagination and thoughts. So, since the internal senses as well as these assumptions and superstitions are present within us, how will we differentiate whether a decision is based on my internal senses or my assumptions and superstitions?
Assumptions and superstitions are results. That is, the internal senses will do their job. Hence, they sense pain, for instance. They feel sorrow and suffering. Similarly, we just referred to the sense of morality, which transmits in us a sense of whether something is good or bad. This action is taking place. In this action, anything can serve as the basis for arguments, assumptions and superstitions too. Assumptions and superstitions are also related to our external world. When I enter the house at night and see a rope and think it is a snake, my external senses have deceived me. This also happens with the internal senses. What is under consideration is the means of knowledge. Whether I see the rope during the night or the day, I can only see it with my eyes and decide how I interpret it. That interpretation can be wrong or right. At that time, I stated what could serve as the basis for that interpretation. That basis may be assumptions and superstitions, rational possibilities, the established premises of the addressees, and other things too.
Ghamidi Sahab, the information acquired through these external and internal senses does not require any further argument to be accepted. I understood this point from your earlier presentation. And these are known as existential realities. Now, for example, someone can say that this point which you propounded, that the information acquired through external senses is an existential reality and does not need any further evidence to be accepted. So to arrive at this point, you had to develop an argument yourself. You looked at the whole universe. From there, you derived that the subject of knowledge is self and matter. Then you determine the senses and how you get access through them. So, even to explain this point, you had to resort to the process of argumentation.
This is not the process of argumentation. Only attention has been drawn toward these things. They have been clarified, understood, and explained. When I ask you to see what lies in front of you, I am not presenting an argument. I am drawing your attention to use the senses that you already possess, and when you see it, you too will reach the same conclusion I did. This is a table, this is a chair, there is the sun, here is the moon. All these things that are existential realities for us in the external world, we develop premises about them. In the beginning, while analyzing the basis of argumentation, I mentioned the established premises of knowledge and intellect. Something becomes a part of your knowledge, whether through the external or the internal senses. In the same way, it becomes a part of my knowledge. Then humanity's consensus develops around it. Consensus does not mean that a fool cannot disagree with it. However, as a whole, it is accepted as true. That is what we term the established premises. So whatever we do based on external senses, we do the same based on internal senses too. Pain, sorrow, and an opinion formed on the basis of the sense of morality or sense of aesthetics, the same action that took place as a result of seeing with the eyes or touching with the hands takes place there.
The point is absolutely clear. Ghamidi Sahab, please clarify two more things. When we perceive things through our external senses, at times what we see through our eyes is not real. We perceive water where there is a mirage. By looking at it, the eyes see water, but there is none when we reach it. So the information acquired through the senses will not always become an existential reality. We can see exceptions. The mirage we perceived as water ultimately turns out to be nothing when we reach it.
No, that is not what exception means. We see all the things. For a large part of what we see, we never doubt it. What we have no doubt about becomes a part of established premises. Regarding some other things, we develop doubts. What actually happens there is that we realize that our senses were deceived. Who decides that? It is the same intellect that was mentioned later. We are given the faculty that analyzes the information acquired through the senses. It is possible that I experience a mirage, but not you. We mutually disagreed. So it will not become an established premise. There is a process through which it becomes an established premise. It is not that we have casually prepared a list of established premises of knowledge and intellect. It has gone through the whole process. Consensus following direct observation. Consensus following analysis. Consensus following academic study. Consensus following a study of rational possibilities, in which one of the possibilities becomes an observable incident. If you deliberate, the term established premises of knowledge and intellect has been adopted for this reason. That is, there is a process through which something becomes an established premise. Disagreement starts at observation. When will it become the accepted reality of all? When it actually becomes an accepted reality, only then can it be made the basis of argumentation.
Ghamidi Sahab, please clarify that something may become an established premise of knowledge and intellect for one person and be presented by him as an existential reality, but we observe that in the field of knowledge, it can still give rise to debate or disagreement. Then, to say that no further evidence is required for accepting them as facts or that they are existential realities and are equivalent to the appearance of the sun itself is the evidence of the sun's existence. Let me take an example. I am not advocating any philosophical opinion here. Just as an example, we know that there is a famous disagreement between Descartes and Hume. So the fundamental thing which Descartes says about the existence of a human being, that it is an existential reality, another philosopher denies through a new conception. Then, even in the case of existential realities, the debate continues.
There's no doubt in that. That is why I have stressed established premises. Established premises means that humanity as a whole accepts them as true. The system of the world operates on it. People from the east to the west agree with it. Any person can also disagree with it. We look at the sun, we use the expression, the appearance of the sun itself is the evidence of the sun's existence. But there are people who are born blind.
Yeah. They have never seen the sun.
Can you convince them about the sun?
No.
The same thing happens with our inner feelings as well. Someone may disagree with us about them too. Many people feel cold, while others do not. Such disagreements can arise in any study. Then later on, what was agreed upon, what was accepted by humanity as a whole, what did they adopt in their lives? So, some philosophers have advanced sophist views. In that, everything is brought under debate. When Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am," it implies that the place from where knowledge originates was not acknowledged as the origin. Instead, it was questioned. Who raised that question? Descartes himself raised it. And when he raised it by accepting his existence. He raised it by accepting the ability to raise a question. Even if Hume were sitting here arguing that this table, which you can see, is not real, he can do it. However, when he gets up, his actions will negate him, because when he gets up, he will save himself from bumping into it. So, existential realities are those that, if you wish, you may bang and break your head against them, but you cannot deny them.
The point is clear, Ghamidi Sahab. In the presentation thus far, we learned what the topics of human knowledge can be and the faculty through which they are understood. That discussion is completed. Let us move ahead. Please tell us that, in what you said so far, the claim that the intellect is the greatest honor and distinction of human beings, what exactly is the intellect's role in it? The intellect is merely a tool. We have senses. There is something present in the external world about which it forms an opinion. So what exactly is the status of the intellect? How do you explain it?
An example of what intellect does has come up in this discussion. That is, whatever is transmitted by the sources of information, our senses, whether internal or external, it is the intellect that understands and acquires them. Now, we will discuss the cases in which it is compelled to abide by inspiration and those in which it is free and has agency.
Okay, let us begin.
In the previous session, we reached the question, what is the starting point of human knowledge? I had explained that they are the existential realities. Starting point means that the process of knowledge formation has begun. Now, we can say we are entering the domain of knowledge. After this, I have written, this perception, that is, through the senses, we have created a connection with thing or the manifestation of its potential. That is the perception we refer to here. How does this perception become knowledge? The answer to this question is that through those inspirations that are inherent in human nature since the very beginning. To be inherent since the beginning means that something is possessed by humans since their creation. In other words, it has become part of the very construction of his personality. It is innately entrusted. It is ingrained. It has been placed in his essence, his nature. Those inspirations which are inherent in human nature since the very beginning, in this, the word inspirations has been used. Do not consider it to be a religious term. The words ilham, the inspiration, or wahi, the revelation, literally mean to instill or implant something. When we study a creature, what drives and moves that creature toward its purpose of existence? What drives and moves that creature toward its purpose of existence, inspiration or revelation, are the most comprehensive terms to denote that. Hence, see how the Quran has used it. Regarding the honeybee, the Quran says that we have revealed to it that it will gather nectar from flowers and convert it into honey. That is the purpose of its existence. What is it that drives the honeybee towards its purpose of existence? What compels it to keep carrying out this task for centuries and continues doing so? So, what will we call it? One way is to term it amar, order or direction. The second is to call it wahi, or revelation. The third is to express it as ilham, or inspiration. Inspirations, in this case, most comprehensively expresses the phenomenon. I have said that it should not be understood as a religious concept. How does this perception become knowledge? The answer to this question is that through those inspirations, that is, those things that have been instilled and are present since the beginning and are becoming the driving force, through those inspirations which are inherent in human nature since the very beginning, for the reason that they are what reach the faculties of perception. As for how they reach our senses, that will become clear later. However, it is those inspirations that reach them. These inspirations immediately form a connection. That is, as soon as our senses perceive something. When perception takes place, these inspirations rush from within, for the reason that they are what reach the faculties of perception and for them. That is, these inspirations reach the place that has the ability to perceive what is received through the senses, and for them become the source of ulum and amal, that is, what may be called our knowledge and actions, and for them become the source of ulum, amal, nazar, and istidlal. Nazar, that is to think about something, to reflect, to analyze it. Nazar is a comprehensive term for it. And istidlal is reasoning. These inspirations, in other words, take humans toward, now that they have a source or origin from which thinking and reasoning would flow, knowledge would emerge, and actions would take shape. How does this perception become knowledge? The answer to this question is that through those inspirations that are inherent in human nature since the very beginning, for the reason that those inspirations are what reach the faculties of perception, reach the senses and become the source of ulum, amal, nazar and istidlal for them. Knowledge has begun to emerge. The construction of knowledge has begun. The formation of knowledge has begun. The intellect, in the presence of these inspirations, is totally enslaved. That is, the intellect cannot impose itself on them. The intellect is compelled to accept whatever decision is made by these inspirations.
So the inspirations are above the intellect.
They are above it. The reason is that it is they in reality who bind the intellect to accept these things as existential realities. The intellect is totally enslaved in their presence. It cannot deviate from their commands. Human life rests on conviction in these decisions. That is, what is our life? It is the things spread in our external world. Life is grounded in this conviction. Within ourselves, our pains, sorrows, the judgments of our moral sense, the results of our aesthetic sense, these are the things in which we live our lives. If we lose trust in any of these things, for instance, the way loss of sight pushes us into total darkness.
Yes, absolutely.
That is its natural corollary. Human life rests on conviction in these decisions. Hence, it is necessary to understand the reality of this conviction. This, in fact, is a concise explanation. It states what is going on. Trust is born as a result of that. This is the analysis of how I developed the conviction that this is a table. Now we need to understand this conviction. Its fundamental principles toward which Imam Hamiduddin Farahi has drawn our attention. That is the process of the development of this conviction. Its fundamental principles toward which Imam Hamiduddin Farahi has drawn our attention are summarized as under. What Imam Hamiduddin Farahi has done is to explain through analysis the process that develops this conviction and has elaborated it as some fundamental principles. I have studied and analyzed his opinions given at various places and have compiled their summary into 7 points. Now, we will understand each of these 7 points.
Okay, Ghamidi Sahab, the 7 points you will tell us will actually describe the process through which, as you had determined, the topics of our knowledge are self and matter. These are the senses, the two faculties, they form a relationship with them, and we get existential realities from them. So the internal process that is taking place, obviously the intellect commands. So this process of reasoning, as you said, there is another thing present from the very beginning with the intellect. That other thing which is already present in our nature, in our essence, are some inspirations or some preconceived knowledge which is present inside. So the points you will tell us further will describe how the intellect and knowledge develop a relationship with it and how it attains conviction.
That is, we have to understand the interaction at work in all these things. That is, the senses transmit the effects of certain things. The intellect is receiving them. Those inspirations create meaning in them. The intellect is totally compelled to accept that meaning. As a result of their mutual action, I am totally convinced that this is a glass of water. Now, we need to understand this action. In other words, those existential realities accepted by everyone here, we are trying to understand how those existential realities become existential realities. We have tried to explain this in 7 points. I will now elaborate on each one of them. First, every living being is certain of the existence of the external world. This is what we are trying to understand. The external world, that is this world that exists outside me, the sun, the moon, the stars and planets, the table, the chair, you are sitting here, innumerable people. This is the external world. Every living being is certain of the existence of the external world. It is with this certainty that I leave home in the morning, that I am talking to you, that I have come and sat in this chair without a second thought. Every living being is certain of the existence of the external world. There is no doubt that this certainty manifests only after sensory knowledge arises. That is, only after seeing the table do I develop the certainty that it is, in fact, a table and come and sit next to it. That is, certainty has manifested, but only after sensory information.
First, I have touched something.
There is no doubt that this certainty manifests only after sensory knowledge arises. But does mere sensation produce it? That is, the connection of my senses with the subjects transmits a feeling. Does that feeling become knowledge? Now we will analyze it. But does mere sensation by itself produce it? The truth is that it does not. Consider, for example, when we touch a body. I have placed my hand on this table, so this is the action of touching. Consider, for example, when we touch a body, our sensation, that is, our sensation of touching. Our sensation is merely a state that comes over the human sense faculty. That is, a feeling comes over our sense faculty. It is a sensory experience that we go through. When we touch a body, our sensation is merely a state that comes over the human sense faculty, along with it. That is, with that state, along with it, unless there is an authority that judges that this effect must have an effector. That is, as soon as this feeling is transmitted, it has developed a connection with the human sense faculty. It was an effect immediately. Something has judged that this effect cannot take place without an effector. So, I touch something, and as soon as the feeling is transmitted, my eyes immediately look at it. So, where have I reached now? The feeling was transmitted to me by touch, but what I want is to see where the effector is.
What has caused the sensation in my hand?
I want to know what has generated that effect. Along with it, unless there is an authority that judges that this effect must have an effector, it would not be possible for us to attain certainty about anything existing outside ourselves. That is, if this whole process were absent, then it would be merely a transmitted feeling. For me, the table will never become a reality. It would only be a feeling. It has happened because as soon as my hand transmitted the feeling, an order was passed from within that the eyes should be directed in this direction. They should see the effector. And as soon as they saw the effector, the connection between the effect and the effector has made this table a reality for me. Along with it, unless there is an authority that judges that this effect must have an effector, it would not be possible for us to attain certainty about anything existing outside ourselves. What is this authority? That is, what is that thing that is ruling? What is this authority before which human will and choice remain entirely subordinate? That is, whether I intend to see or not, when this feeling is transmitted, I will either ignore it or obey its command. And when I obey its command, I will inevitably reach the effector and will be compelled to accept it as the effector. In other words, my will and choice have become entirely subordinate. What is this authority before which human will and choice remain entirely subordinate? If you reflect, it is those very inspirations that rule the human self. So, what is it that drives the honeybee to get nectar from flowers and collect the nectar gathered from different places in the hive and turn it into honey? There is a drive within it. It is that drive which the Quran names wahi. We are naming the same type of drives, inspirations here. If you reflect, it is those very inspirations, that is, innate revelations, which are present within us, that rule the human self. Thus, after touching something, together with the sensation that is conveyed, a kind of natural reasoning also comes into being. That is, as soon as my hand touches this table, along with it, a reasoning has started. What is that reasoning? It is the one that takes us from the effect to the effector. That is, an effect cannot take place without an effector. It is an inspiration in the very structure of my consciousness. It has to create that connection immediately. Thus, after touching something, together with the sensation that is conveyed, a kind of natural reasoning also comes into being. which takes us from the effect to the effector. No premises are formally propounded for this reasoning. That is, the way we construct an argument in logic, we do not need any such construction here. No premises are formally propounded for this reasoning. It arises without deliberate thought or intention. That is, it was not that I touched it, and then the thought about knowing what it is arose in me. Then I decided to determine it. Nothing of this sort happened. Instead, it transpired in such a way that I was totally subjugated to that action. It arises without deliberate thought or intention, and it is so compelling that even if we wished to disagree with it, we could not. Even if we wished to disagree with it, we could not. In practical life, we are not only compelled to accept each of these things, but the whole structure of our life is built upon them. It arises without deliberate thought or intention, and it is so compelling that even if we wish to disagree with it, we could not. This makes it clear that our knowing something, our gaining knowledge of something, what is happening here is to understand how perception becomes knowledge. This makes it clear that our knowing something and becoming certain of its existence is the manifestation of the same power of knowledge and certainty which has been placed within our nature. That is, this is that power of knowledge and certainty which was instilled in me through these inspirations. It has become a part of my existence. It is ingrained in me. Hence, I cannot even imagine seeing anything without this certainty. This makes it clear that our knowing something and becoming certain of its existence is the manifestation of the same power of knowledge and certainty which has been placed within our nature. Human beings are granted this power as they are granted their senses and other faculties. That is, as I have not created these senses through reasoning. Rather, they have been given to me as a source of knowledge, whether they are internal or external. In the same way, these inspirations are present within me. That is, the tools used by the honeybee to extract nectar from flowers, the mechanism within it that transforms the nectar into honey, as well as the inspiration that has guided it to its purpose, have all been given to it. As well as the inspiration that has guided it to its purpose, have all been given to it. In other words, all these things are endowments. They have been granted. These things have been embedded in me as a part of my very existence, which has been placed within our nature. Human beings are granted this power as they are granted their senses and other faculties. To summarize, we can determine the senses, we can become aware of the things too. They are present in the external world, however. As for the capability to distinguish and separate these things, identify them as separate identities and connect my knowledge with them, we fail to recognize that it is a part of the inspirations within us that is doing all that. This fact has been clarified in this first point.
Okay, Ghamidi Sahab, this point has come to the fore. Two brief clarifications will further elaborate it. For example, you said that the knowledge we obtain from it is not based on thought and intention. It is a command of the inspiration accepted by the intellect. Now, for instance, I touched the table. When I touched it, I felt a sensation in my hands. It conveyed a message to the brain through the neurons. Now, the fact that this is a table has been told to me by society, because when I touch things in a dark room, I am not able to make a decision, nor do my inspirations tell me that this is a table or this is a chair. So the point that it is visible, it is made in such a way, it is called a table, it is all because for centuries people have been calling a table, which is why when I see a table, the sensation from my hand goes up and my intellect commands me that it is a table. So I got the knowledge of a table from outside.
No, you got this name from outside. That is the identity you gave it within yourself, the one that you, I, and thousands of others gave it, made it a common reality for all of us. Then we named it. In Urdu, we named it maize. In English, we gave it another name. This actually is the transmission of names. If you observe, the action, nevertheless, took place within, which first brought it to your, my, Zaid's, and Bakar's knowledge. Then that knowledge was shared. Then it was needed to name it, and that need to give it a name developed communication-based connections.
Okay, the point is clear. Ghamidi Sahab, the key takeaway of your first point is that until something is an effector, no effect can be created. So I ask you about the same example which came under discussion in the beginning, that I can see an effect, I can see water in front of me, but when I go near, there is no effector. So it means that even without an effect can be created somewhere.
No, there too there was an effector. The thing that you see has created this effect. Now you are investigating that effect. You go and see what caused that effect. The same thing has happened here. That is, my hands transmitted a feeling. Immediately, my eyes become attentive. After that, the picture is compared with the one that is already within me. And now, a judgment is passed from within that this is a table.
The point is absolutely clear. We are trying to understand from Ghamidi Sahab the 7 points that explain how our senses work and how we attain conviction. The first point came under discussion. There will be further points in the next session. The time ends here. We will be back again. Thank you very much for your time till now.
Thank you very much.